Hello, hello! I am Ben Pick, and thank you for joining me in Running to Write, where I give questionable writing advice through running metaphors. Today will be a bonus episode where I answer the 20 questions for the Philosophy of Reading tag created by Brandon of Brandonsbookshelf. On his channel, he explores classic literature and encourages his audience to read or reread the novels he reviews. The care in which he researches the novels and the local knowledge he displays go far and beyond to demonstrate his passions for the subjects. I'll link his video tag in the description below, and you should check it out after finishing with this video. These are the 20 questions he created for the Philosophy of Reading tag. Number 1. What's most important? Character, plot, or message? Character. I can force myself through lackluster plot or messages so long as the characters are engaging. When the characters are terrible, or worse, boring, then reading becomes a chore. Number 2. Should one read books with ideas or opinions they disagree with? Absolutely! Understanding an opposing view can recontextualize your experiences and beliefs. Even if you still disagree with another person's view, at least reading their thoughts can help make you more compassionate and empathetic to a different point of view. This is a must for bridging gaps in discussions. Number 3. As tech advances, what do you think will be the role of books? I think books in whatever form they take will be a way to detach from electronics, which is ironic because I read from a Kindle. I keep a handful of my favorite novels in paperback and hardcover, but my recent collections have all been digital, as I'm running out of room in my house for more books. Fun fact, the Fairfax Library allows you to get digital copies of books, but even so, that is still just more digital copies. I'd like to think that books will never go away to be replaced by some fully audio format. However, having an entire digital library stored on one single small device is much more convenient for the near future as a solution. It certainly makes traveling for vacations much easier than carrying around a backpack full of books. That makes physical books a decoration or a way to showcase your interests. Number 4. How important are summaries, reviews, and art in your book choosing? I haven't picked up a new book off the shelf, or one which hasn't been recommended to me, in easily half a decade, if not an entire 10 years. So the summaries, reviews, and art are largely meaningless for me. Which is great because you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. I'll appreciate the cover art as a lasting impression after finishing the book, and will read the reviews again after I finished to make sure that I understood it fully and had a similar experience to others. My TBR list is too full of recommendations and new books by my favorite authors, so it will be several years before I need to worry about a summary or cover art to entice me to pick up a book. That being said, I picked up one of my favorite series within the middle trilogy based solely on its cover art and titles. The simple design and interesting titles engaged my young mind, and I was hooked from there. Number 5. Should you ever scan a book? Yes, some stories are not written well, some are written to blatantly pad for word counts, and when it's obvious that the information being presented in the chapter is irrelevant to the story, I go ahead and skim. Number 6. Should reading always be enjoyable? Yeah, my goal is to read what I find to be enjoyable. For me, reading is an escape, so even if the characters are experiencing fictional trauma, I know that good will ultimately win, and that the end result will be a well-told story. If reading is no longer enjoyable to me, then I'll probably skim to get to the end faster. Number 7. Is it important to be well-read? Yes. The more I read, the more I've noticed how my ability to communicate has improved. Granted, there is still a major issue in conveying my ideas, namely the gap between my brain and my mouth. Reading a wide diversity of books can be enlightening to breaking out of your own bubble and isolated views. Number 8. What is your book buying process? Sadly, Amazon. I wish I had a better answer, but for a lot of the small indie authors whose works I pick up, their only outlet is through Kindle. Though whenever possible, I do look for Amazon alternatives. Number 9. What is your reading process? It varies. I end almost every night by reading for 15 to 30 minutes in bed, and I try to read when I can throughout the week. On a cold day, I love nothing more than curling up on the couch with a great book. Also, I am frequently in transit, so I'll occupy myself by either reading or writing during that time. Number 10 is a little bit of a tongue twister, but how do you use what you read? The material I read makes me think differently about this world. A story including characters and cultures which I know very little about can shine a light on the struggles they experience and showcase how messed up our world can be. These stories can also be a beacon of hope to show how those characters, real or fake, triumphed. Number 11. If you could download a book to your head, would you still read? Yes, I read for entertainment and I will continue to do so even if a shortcut is available. However, there are a handful of novels which I would love to have permanently trapped within my brain. Number 12. What are your views on rereading a book? There are far too many books out there which I have yet to read for me to want to run on an old trail. That being said, I do very rarely go back and reread the formulative books from my young adult life which taught me to love reading. When I was a kid, I reread the Lord of the Rings novel every summer on vacation. Now that I'm an adult and time is precious, I rarely go back to reread novels I've already finished. I get that I do and will experience something new by rereading them, but I don't really have the time to sit there and enjoy a book like I used to. Number 13. What makes a book good? A good book will make me lose track of time and contain a story which feels real. Any author who can make me care about the characters I envision in my head is a fantastic storyteller. Number 14. What makes a book bad? When I can clearly see what's about to happen in the story, yet the characters act like everything going on is a mystery. Also, when characters act against their own defined nature to infuse drama or create winding events that add to page counts and do little else. Number 15. How do you feel about not finishing a book? I do not DNF novels. Even if a story isn't resonating with me, I can still use it as a sleep aid. For those who follow my channel, this week I reviewed a novel which was great for helping me go to sleep. If you're interested in my thoughts on Nevernight, then click the link above for my review. For all my issues across that novel in the series, I'm still glad that I read them all the way through. Some novels can have worthwhile endings that change my interpretations of the author's intentions and turn a painful read into a fun journey. That wasn't the case with the series I mentioned, but at least I know now. 16. Should an author's personal life matter at all? A terrible person should not be rewarded by being given a public platform from which to normalize and spread messages of hate. As much as I love the Harry Potter series, my views have been slightly tainted by the author's public declarations, many of which have hurt others. One major saving point is that the cast of the movies have come out to spread messages of tolerance which run directly counter to the author's public statements. Also, a major theme of the Harry Potter series is that love and tolerance will defeat ignorance, which again is in direct defiance of some of the statements she's made. I had a similar experience with Orson Scott Card's racist rants that made me dislike the Ender series. While I would never advocate stealing a book, I wouldn't be opposed to downloading a terrible person's novels if you still had a strong interest in reading them. Number 17. If you could only read one genre for the rest of time, what would it be? Fantasy, specifically high fantasy. While my favorites tend to include more urban fantasy stories, I find it much easier to get lost in an entirely different world such as those in high fantasy. As a bonus, these different worlds often act as allegories for real-life problems. 18. Do you ever read a book without knowing anything about it? Yes. Some of my upcoming holiday reads include a trilogy of novels that my wife recommended. I know only that it's a trilogy of novels by an author who does science to-do videos and that she thinks I'll like it. That's not much to go on, but hopefully it'll work. Otherwise, I get my recommendations from Book and AuthorTube, which tend to include more specific details. That may be the themes or moments people enjoyed, or some mild spoilery events. I do try to know as little as possible about a novel because I like being surprised. Number 19. What author, genre, culture, and series can you just not get into and why? Romance. Every romance novel I've read feels like a strict patterned set of story beats. And whenever a romance subplot is bolted on to stories I like, I feel that it detracts from the story. I've used this phrase before, but they end in predictable and inevitable wish fulfillment. I am open to suggestions for stories to read which are counter to my point, but these have been my experiences. And lastly, number 20, do you think everyone should read and why? 100% absolutely. Going back to my earlier point about how reading differing views can make a person more compassionate, reading teaches people to be better. I have a bunch of young nieces and nephews, and I can watch in near real time as the way that they perceive the world expands the more books that they devour. That's not the only factor, but it is an important one. There is a direct correlation between high intelligence and reading. This was a long one for today, so thank you for sticking with me. I hope my answers were enlightening and encourage you to partake in your own tag for the philosophy of reading if you so choose. I am Ben Pick, and thank you for joining me in Running to Write. If you enjoyed today's bonus content or are new here, then please press those like and subscribe buttons. I really do appreciate it. Let me know in the comments about your own reading philosophies. Do you agree with my opinions, or is everything I said wrong? I post my running and writing progress on Instagram and Twitter, so be sure to follow me and join in with your own thoughts. See you next time. Until then, look inward and think about why and what you read.